Good morning, I'm Reverend Leslie. I'm one of your growing team of ministers here at New Vision Center, and it is so fun to be up here with you today. So if you listened to the words of that song, you know exactly what we're talking about today. I did it all. I did it all. If you're anything like me, there's a part of you that is thinking things occasionally like, what if I'm destined for more? What if I'm destined for something bigger, something brighter, something better? And then sometimes maybe, just maybe, you're thinking things like, what if I'm not? What if I'm destined for less? What if there's a plan that is holding me back somehow and I'm trying to push into something that isn't for me? What if I feel stuck because I'm supposed to be stuck? I won't ask for a raise of hands on that because we don't like to admit it, but sometimes that quiet little ego voice in the very back of our mind is saying, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Or sit down. This one's not for you. Or, okay, well, maybe that goes a little delusional. I've had these moments, right? I've had these moments. And then this idea that came to me through Science of Mind really changed everything for the way I look at the world. And it's a really simple idea, and oh man, did I fight it for the longest time. And it was this: you are always at choice. You are always a choice. I am always at choice. But what about destiny? What about fate? What about the plan? Because I don't know about you, but I grew up being told God has a plan for you. And I was really interested in if this was ever going to get revealed. Like, was I going to get an itinerary? And then I read this from Ernest Holmes. And you know it's a good one from Ernest Holmes when it comes from page 4 of anything he's written. We create our own destiny moment by moment through the power of our choices. So when we say God does not have a plan for you, we do not mean, you're on your own. Everybody else gets a plan, but not you. We mean you make the plan, and then Spirit supports it. And you can change it any old time you want. You are always at choice. I am always at choice. We are always at choice. Now, the next natural thought from we are always at choice is there's nothing we have to do. Oh, I just lost you. 98% of the people in the room were thinking of the one thing they have to do, right? Like, oh, that's a great thing for you to say up there, but I have to fill in the blank thing. So just let yourself connect with that. What is that thing that you dread that you have to do? You just have to do it. There's no getting out of it. You have to do it. You know what it is because it's the thing that rose up for you to argue with me in your brain for the rest of my talk. Connect with that. Now, if you don't have a have to, connect with your should. Because we have those too, right? Well, I really should. And hold on to that. Let that stay present in your consciousness. And now feel into the idea of, do you? Really? Do you really have to do it? Do you? Odds are for many of you, there is a list of all the terrible things that would happen if you didn't do it going through your mind now, right? So-and-so would be mad, and such money might go away, and the dog will rip up the couch, or whatever's going on. But what you're describing in your mind, this is so nice, I don't even have to give the talk, they're doing it for me. What you're describing in your mind is not a list of reasons why you have to do something. What you're describing in your mind is a list of consequences to a choice. feel into the difference between I have to and I choose to, noticing that I would not enjoy those consequences. It's different. It's different. Feel into the idea, just right there inside yourself, of if I say I have to and I don't have a choice and I must, versus, I've looked at the choices. This is the choice I'm going to make because that pile of consequences outweighs any not wanting to do it. It's different. And that difference, the difference between have to and choosing a difficult thing, is the difference between living in angst and victimhood and living in power and strength. I want to live a life of power and presence and joy. Anybody else in the room feel that way? Right? I want to live a life of power, presence, and joy. And I believe that the promises that Spirit has made to me through basically every faith tradition and every wise person I've ever heard that managed to get out of dogma and into wisdom, every mystic is what we call that person, every promise I've ever heard from Spirit has told me that it is my birthright to live a life of peace, power, joy, presence, abundance, love, and good. Perhaps you have read some of the same books, right? Perhaps you have heard Reverend Karen or myself or Reverend Jeff or any of a number of amazing people stand up here and say, this is your birthright. You get to have this, right? But we have to choose it. Spirit doesn't have a plan for us because it is our job to choose it. To choose it. And thankfully, we are always at choice. Convenient, right? It's almost like it was worked out in one mind. Ernest Holmes talks a lot about the creative process. Ernest Holmes, for anybody who doesn't know, was the founder of our teaching. He read and studied extensively through many, many faith traditions and philosophies and created kind of a hybrid of what he called the golden thread of truth that ran through all wisdom teachings. And he talked a lot about what he called the creative process, which is that we have an idea and we work it through the unconscious and subconscious layers of our being, the stuff we believe, the stuff we've heard, the stuff we know. And out of all of that energetically comes our life, what we see, what we do, what we have. This is a wonderful way to look at the world, and it's a little bit complicated. It requires charts. I didn't bring you charts today. Instead, I brought you this analogy, this metaphor he gave us about a chalkboard. And this is from Power for Good. And he said this: life is a chalkboard before which we stand and write the words which govern us. We hold both chalk and the eraser in our hands. The chalkboard allows us to either use chalk or eraser upon it according to our power or will of choice. We can't always decide what happens to us. Stuff happens. Again, perhaps you've read that book. Stuff happens. But we can we can always be at choice about how we respond to it. So the chalk on this chalkboard is how we choose what we're going to do. It's how we press our thoughts into the lots, how we resonate out into the world with our chalk. We write on our chalk, with our chalk on the chalkboard, what it is we wish to do. Every new choice, we're using our chalk. Sometimes we can have a tendency to let the chalk sit there and think things like, who am I to decide how to use that chalk? What if God has a different plan for my chalk? What if it's someone else's chalk and I'm not supposed to touch it? It sounds silly, right? But it's not any different than, but what if I'm taking away someone else's job? If I get that job, who doesn't get the job? And who am I to get the job? Who am I to take someone else's good? But that implies that good is like pie. And that we can eat somebody else's slice and then we run out of slices. Life is not like pie. There is more than enough good for everyone because the universe just keeps baking more pies. Forever. Infinite pie. Infinite pie for everyone. We can never run out. We can't use it up. Here's the thing though. Looking at the chalk and hoping, apparently the chalk is down there now. Looking at the chalk and hoping it will hop up and draw a beautiful new life for us on the chalkboard doesn't accomplish very much, does it? I mean, I invite you to will with me this beautiful chalk to hop up. We haven't even made it visible yet, so we are not good at this. Will the chalk to rise up, and it doesn't work that way. We have to pick up the chalk. We have to decide, choice, we have to decide what we want to draw with the chalk. And then we have to choose
I'm so happy to be able
draw
to join
the
you
thing.
from my vacation.
We have to come to a decision, which is a choice.
Touch base on
we
a
have
couple
to
of things
take
that I think
action
are important enough
with our life. We can't just hope. We can't just dream about it. We have to decide. It has to be active. That's the way the law works. That's why we can't just daydream about the idea of the boyfriend or the job or the healed physical situation. It doesn't work like that. We have to claim it. We have to use our metaphorical chalk. And I mean, if it helps, get a real chalkboard. Use real chalk. Claim it. I mean, it's not any different than the journal that we've been telling you to keep for 57 years that you all have a reason to not be writing in. What? Active decision powered by intention and action. A choice. We choose the new. We choose the new. If only that was it, right? If only that was the whole story. There's another wave there. Somebody in this room, I won't call you out, somebody in this room has a story in their head and their heart about how they cannot use their chalk properly because of something else that has already happened to them or that they've already done in the past. They've already messed up their chalk. They've broken their chalkboard and they can't move forward. My least favorite phrase in the English language, if I could eradicate it, I would, is, "You've made your bed, now lie in it." You've made your bed, now lie in it. You did it, now you have to live with it. There's no getting out of it, you're stuck. Please hear me. Please hear me. That is a lie. That is a lie foisted upon us by a culture that did not understand the way Spirit works. They don't even seem to understand how beds work. Because I don't know about you, but I make my bed every day. And it tends to be a little different. I'm not real great at making beds, so it looks a little different every day. In the same segment about the chalkboard, Ernest Holmes went on to say, you do not have to go through life paying for the mistakes of yesterday. But the important thing is that the hand which holds the eraser must do the erasing on the chalkboard of our mind. We have chalk, but we have an eraser, and we have to erase it. If we do not want to live out the consequences of what has come before, we have to decide that as expressions of God in form, we have the power to change it. And where do we change it? Out there in the world of effects? No. Good, Reverend Karen. Reverend Karen knew the right answer. Whew, it's a good thing our minister knew the right answer. We start here in the chalkboard of our mind in our own consciousness, where we let ourselves off the hook. We let ourselves out of the torture mill that is the belief that I made my bed and now I have to lie in it. Did you know that you can choose again what you did in the past? One of my favorite little things from Marianne Williamson is this idea, so please join me in it, to close your eyes and allow to rise up the one thing you wish you hadn't done. The one thing you wish you had processed differently, that you had acted differently, or the thing that had happened to you that you wish had not happened. Imagine that story, just a real quick version of that story. And from what you know now, how do you wish you'd responded? See yourself making that choice now. And feel the power of that experience that has been stored in your cells. Feel it start to lessen. Feel it start to fall away. We can change anything in our consciousness. There's no time and space in God. That thing you wish you'd said, say it now on the inside of yourself. That thing you wish you hadn't said, don't say it now on the inside of yourself. And whenever you're ready, as you open your eyes and come back to this space, know that when we say everything happens in consciousness first, we mean everything. Everything happens in consciousness first. And so when we change something in our own consciousness, when we release our attachment to what has happened or what we did or what we did not do, when we use that eraser, what we're doing is erasing a part of that piece of our subconscious, that middle part of the teaching symbol that holds all of our beliefs and memories, through which all of our ideas pass and are colored, are changed. We're letting that go. We're pulling that weed, to use the metaphor that we've been using all year. And then when we make a choice, when we make a new choice, a fresh choice with our chalk, it can write cleanly on that board. There's nothing interfering with the expression of this new thing. I am a choice, always, and no choice is permanent. I can always choose again. I can always make my bed again. I can get a different blanket. I can have my husband do it for me. That happens some days. I can flip the sheets over. I can do anything I want, and so can you. We are always, always at choice. But we can't just erase. Just like we can't just write. We bump into the words of the previous expression and it isn't clear. We can't just erase. Because then we're what? I don't know, a snail. If we just erase and don't choose anything new, then that's not going to make it better either, right? We must erase the old and write the new intentionally and consciously, and keep focused on the way we want our new life to be. So I heard this story about a man named Michael, and it really locked in this idea for me that being a choice, no matter what's going on, makes a difference. So Michael was one of those guys. He worked at a telecom company, and he was one of those coworkers, maybe you've had one of them, maybe I'm one of them for you, that is just always like, choose a good mood, be super happy, yay, positive, here's a quote. And Sam, who worked with him, did not jive with this. He was like, this guy is not attached to reality. He's read one too many self-help books, and I'm pretty sure he's not paying attention to what's going on in the world. And one day he kind of hit his edge with Michael, and he was like, what's the deal, dude? What's the deal with the super peppy cheerleader action every day at work? And Michael was thrilled to be asked. Because, people like this, we want to talk about it. He said, I just think that everything is a choice. Every day I get up in the morning and I have a choice. Be in a good mood or be in a bad mood. When something happens to me, I have a choice. Be a victim about it or learn something from it. And I just keep focusing on the positive, focusing on the positive, focusing on the positive. And anybody can do it. And Sam was like, that is not how it works. You're delusional. It's not that easy. I don't understand how you can do it. That is not how my life works. And Michael said, it just comes down to this. When you get rid of all the junk, I'm erasing, in case that wasn't clear. When you get rid of all the junk, life is basically just a series of choices, and I choose the positive. I choose the highest choice no matter what, and I find that it makes my life better. And Sam just decided to let that go. He didn't get it, but he decided to let it go. Many years later, they don't work together anymore, and Sam hears that Michael was in a terrible accident. He fell from one of the communication towers that are 60 feet in the air. Yeah. And it took 18 hours of surgery and months of rehab for Michael to be able to walk and talk again. And Sam was like, oh, bet you're not so positive now. Because he didn't choose that. Nobody chooses fall from a communications tower, right? Just like when something happens to us, we don't say, what was in your consciousness that you got in that car wreck? Like, nobody actively chooses an accident or an illness or something bad to happen. So he runs into him and he finally gets to ask, how are you? And what was that like for someone like you specifically? And Michael was like, well, when I was laying on the ground, I just fell 60 feet. I was conscious. And I thought, I have a choice. See, when we practice, it clicks in like that, even in those moments. I have a choice. I can live, I can die. And it really was that close. He could have died in that moment. He chose to fight. He chose to live. And Sam said, but weren't you scared? Weren't you scared of what was going to happen? And he said, I wasn't. I wasn't scared until I saw the look on the doctors' faces. And they were looking at me like I was a dead man already. And that scared me. Because you don't try as hard if you think they're already a goner, right? That scared me. And so I'm laying there thinking, I've got to do something. I've got to do something to change the way these doctors are perceiving me. And in that moment, a nurse asked, are you allergic to anything? And I could barely make a sound. I could barely move, but I gathered up all the energy I had, took the biggest breath I could, and I yelled, gravity! And once they were really paying attention to him, he said, I want to live. I choose to live. So please operate on me like I am alive and not dead. And he did live. And he lived to have this conversation with Sam. And he is actually still alive now. And he got better enough. He actually went back to work eventually. He did not climb any more 60-foot towers. Choice is infinitely essential. And we have to let ourselves stop believing that we don't have choice or that the choices we made in the past lock us into a path now. I choose a life of freedom, of power, of presence, and of joy. And I know because I have been promised by wisdom itself that whatever I choose will be supported by Spirit. That plan I make for myself, that I choose for me, that you choose for you, is supported by Spirit. It will always be okay because we are at choice and we are supported. Are you with me? Yes, and so it is. So let's anchor this in with some prayer. I invite the ministers in service, the practitioners in service, the practitioner students to rise right where we are. How amazing it is to know that each beloved here is an expression of divine perfection. That we are just exactly where and how we are. We are whole and perfect and complete. Everything that ever has been needed for the highest expression of our unique lives is built into our very beingness by that which brought us forth. that we are already abundant, that we are already wholeness, that we are already loving and beloved. Even if we can't see it right now, even if it feels like it's outside of our line of sight, even if it's buried under layers and layers of chalk on our chalkboard, the truth of us is infinite goodness. And so I just lean into that knowingness for each one of us, knowing that whatever was on our heart when we entered this space, that we simply allow Spirit to heal it right now, to soften, to open, to expand, to become the truth of who we really are. How good it is to be at choice, to be empowered, to know that there is nothing we cannot be or have or do. And so from this place of gratitude and knowingness, I just call it good. And so it is.